Hello, and welcome to Atlantic Council Debrief, Atlantic Council Europe Center's internet show and podcast on the most pressing issues impacting transatlantic relations today. My name is Olga Khakova. I am a Deputy Director for European Energy Security at the Atlantic Council Global Energy Center. And I'm very pleased to welcome today my guest, who is Dr. Antonia Colibășanu, who is a senior geopolitical analyst focusing on strategic competitive intelligence analysis. She is Geopolitical Futures Chief Operating Officer. Antonia, welcome. Such a pleasure to have you here today. We have limited time, so we're going to just dive right in. Just recently, European political groups comprising Social Democrats, Center-Right National Liberal Party, the Reformist Save Romania Union Party, and the Hungarian UDMR reached an agreement and to enter into a coalition government. How do you currently assess the situation and the coalition's stabilities and future prospects?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. And indeed, it is a very interesting time in Romania where we have a pro-European coalition being put together because the pro-European parties are very much afraid that the extremist populist nationalist forces in Romania are going to get popular vote in the next presidential elections. And they're trying to make certain that whoever wins the elections will have to deal with a pro-European, pro-NATO, pro-Western, in effect, government and parliament. I think that their push is, successful, at least now. We will still need to see whether they will have a common candidate or not in the following days. They're discussing this as well. But what remains true is that we still have a very high, unexpectedly high extreme support or support for the extreme parties and voices in Romania. So that's one thing that they will not be able to ignore, even if they manage to hold a coalition.
What is the future of these extreme populist candidates like Georgescu, especially as they gain more traction? You mentioned that this is something that's not going away. Tell us more.
So I have written actually a few reports on the matter. And first of all, it is unexpected because in Romania we have high popularity for pro-European, pro-Western forces. The approval rating is higher than 80% for the European Union among the Romanian public. And not to mention that Romanians are very much anti-Russian. They fear Russia more than anything. So it was unexpected to see that Călin Georgescu, a candidate reportedly coming out of nowhere, has gotten to be the first in the first round of elections, of presidential elections. And that has to do with what intelligence agencies have disclosed to be a very intense propaganda and very intense support from a foreign nation actor, which was confirmed to be Russia. So obviously, this is a first case where we have something like this disclosed during the campaigning, during the electoral process. We also have had the Constitutional Court basically saying, well, this vote is fraud, and therefore we need to stop it and we need to cancel and restart with the electoral process, also a very first in democracies. And in a way, this sets a sort of a blueprint on how democracies could handle interference, foreign interference in the electoral process. But at the same time, we have to be realistic and understand that it was fertile ground for such disinformation campaign and for such a push coming out in the electoral process and being supported by Russia. Because what Russia does is adapting to whatever works for the audience. And this happened in Romania as well. There is a lot of polarization. There is a lot of dissatisfaction the way that the country is being run. There are socioeconomic problems that have been there. And despite the development that we've seen, despite the investment in infrastructure that we have seen during the last 5 years, we do still have problems. And there is a matter of a growing sentiment that the establishment is not necessarily working for all the population, which has been seen in the results of the vote. So this will stay there unless the mainstream parties are not tackling, and unless the institutions are not tackling the case and are not doing something for the trust to be reestablished between the institutions, between the mainstream parties and the public. That's I think, the core of the matter.
Thank you for this excellent summary. Let's zoom out. How does this impact the broader transatlantic relations, but also bilateral relations with the United States, particularly considering the new administration coming in, the Trump administration coming in relationship there with Romania against this background?
Sure. So, bottom line, what we have right now is actually a result of increased cooperation between Romania and the U.S. And in my report for the Foreign Policy Research Institute, I go into detail explaining why it made sense for Russia to get involved now in attacking Romania in a hybrid warfare format. This is because not only that we have American troops on the ground in Romania, we also have a country that has increased expenditure and has become a security provider for the region. And that is set to continue. That is also part of the larger strategy that Romania is having at the Black Sea. And this is obviously something that Russia is not okay with. At the same time, not only does Romania invest more in defense capabilities and works more with NATO partners and especially with the U.S., but Romania also has plans to develop an energy resource in the Black Sea proper, where we have offshore resources and where, if these are developed, we would become an exporter for the region. So this is obviously, this is basically translating into the fact that Romania could become a competitor for Russia in Southeastern Europe, something that is really not good for Moscow. Not to mention that right now, Russia is in a position where it wants to make certain that it has the upper hand in whatever negotiations will happen next. So let's remember that Russia wants to have the southern coast of Ukraine. And for that to effectively happen, you either have to have a military posture that allows you to do that, and Russia does not have that right now, or you make certain that Ukraine does not have access to the sea and to the trade routes by diminishing Romania's power to help Ukraine. Because right now, we're a logistical hub for Ukraine, especially for the trade. We have invested in infrastructure, and we have basically allowed Ukraine to ship its trade to the world market through the coast and through the waters of Romania and through the infrastructure, the railways and the roads of Romania. So this is key to understand why we're seeing this increase, and at the same time to understand that this is a strategic element referring to Romania's position in the Black Sea. So within the transatlantic relationship, I think that on the long term, considering the population is not going to change its mode and become pro-Russian all of a sudden, this is not going to happen. We will still see Romania working with the United States, working with NATO. But if we will see extreme forces growing in Romania, there will be political destabilization that will make that process slower.
Thank you so much. You mentioned a couple of things here that I want to dissect just a little bit more. On NATO and hard security, we've heard several statements from Trump and his team on, finding some kind of a deal, a peace deal for Ukraine. That can look like a lot of different setups, right? There's a range of what that deal could end up being. In terms of kind of Romania's perspective, one range, one side of that deal could be security guarantees through NATO for Ukraine. I'm not saying that that's something that's automatically going to happen, but that has been discussed as one of the potential options. There are other security guarantee options on the table as well, of course. How would Romania support or not support Ukraine joining NATO, or just kind of a broader, next step of ensuring, as you mentioned, that Russia does not become emboldened to go after additional countries after Ukraine, after some kind of a deal is secured?
Right. So what Romania fears most is that Russia comes to the Danube mouth, which is Russia also having a border with Romania on land. That being said, Romania would support any kind of security guarantees that keeps Russia at bay, and that keeps Ukraine from becoming a post-conflict zone that is unmanageable. So I think that the greatest fear we have, not only in Romania, but also in Europe, is that we have a case similar to Bosnia, but at the Ukrainian dimension, at the Ukrainian size. This is exactly what we do not need currently in Europe. And that is the key element that we bring to the table whenever the Ukrainian case is discussed. Now, with regards to Ukraine in NATO or Ukraine in the EU, we do not know right now, as you pointed out, what kind of a deal we have. But what we know is that we want Kiev to be stable and to be able to continue to trade with the world, continue to have economic power. And for that to happen, we need to have the Black Sea shore open and not conquered by Russia. So these are the elements that Romania is looking at. And this is why also the reshift during the last 2 years, 3 years almost, in building up infrastructure and making it possible for Ukraine to continue to have the economic flows going into the Black Sea. That's key, and that's a key security guarantee if you think about it.
Thank you, Antonia. In the last minute that we have left, and I know that's going to be challenging to do, you mentioned energy. Energy security is Romania's broader role in strengthening security in the region, but also just across Europe, and frankly, the transatlantic energy security as well. Could you give us some more insight into this topic?
Well, that's interesting because right now we are having a sort of an emergency case in the Republic of Moldova, where the energy minister said yesterday that we might have an emergency situation if Russia cuts down the gas supply, the natural gas supply coming in through Transnistria, the breakaway region, into Moldova, and basically shutting down 80% of what Moldova consumes in terms of energy. And that is very much an emergency case for Romania, because Romania is the only country in the region that provides some natural gas to Moldova, not enough to cover everything that's needed for Moldova to continue at the normal kind of pace of consumption. But we can provide some, at least on the western side of the country and for the capital. And we are working to integrate further the electricity infrastructure with Moldova so we can provide more. So this kind of pressure that we are seeing right now from Russia on two sides. First, that's a reported meddling into the electoral process in Romania, but also very much possible that it cuts down natural gas to Moldova. That is also a pressure on Romania as part of the general hybrid tactics that Russia is doing to make certain that it maintains pressure and its influence going in its neighborhood. So at the same time, Romania is trying to fight back with whatever it can. And we'll see what we do with regards to the electoral process, because that's a first case in democracy defending itself in the process of being attacked. And at the same time, on the energy side, making sure that we push whatever we can into the Moldovan system, and we build the infrastructure and further to be able to provide on the medium and long term an alternative to Russian gas and energy.
Thank you so much. This is a serious situation that's really worth following as we go into the depth of the winter. And thank you for highlighting how the energy situation closely ties into the broader economic, democratic issues as well. Antonia, it was such a pleasure to hear your insights, your expertise. Just really wonderful to speak with you today, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. It was wonderful to have this dialogue. Thanks much.